Parents, what is the worst most awkward thing your kid has seen or overheard because you didn't realize they were in the room? NSFW. My ex-wife was having an affair. I did not know, and took my 3 sons to beach one day. There just happened to be a guy there from her work. At one point one of my sons was standing off to the side and overheard my ex-wife say to her co-worker, "If you're gonna stare at my ass, don't be doing it in front of the kids." My son came home and told me. She is now my ex. My mom straight up told me I have an affair. Don't say anything to your dad. I did the same day. Kid. Used to hang out at my girlfriend's parents' house almost every day after school. We could always hear her parents banging. To this day. I still don't know if they just didn't know that we could hear or didn't care. Plot twist. Whenever we heard them start going at it, we did too. Because we knew they were occupied and it was safe. That awkward moment when you're shirtless in the kitchen with her dad. Both sipping your glasses of water and avoiding eye contact. Edit. My first gold. Woohoo. I'm the daughter. Only child. Which probably has a bit to do with these situations. And the fact that our house was pretty small. But I have a couple. Walked in on my dad showing mom how bad his hemorrhoids have gotten. I got yelled at for this one. Was sitting watching TV. And dad, with a beer in his hand, walked to the bottom of the stairs, called up to mom giggling because he had discovered a hole in his briefs and a ball was sticking through. I'm still 90% sure he never noticed I was there still. My dad's not a drunk or anything. But damn is he unobservant sometimes. Not a parent but son. I once overheard my mother telling my father that if they were to adopt instead of giving birth, they would have chosen a better son than me. I don't think she meant it, but it sure did hurt. My older brother is adopted. My parents didn't think they could have kids, and the other 3 of us are biological. When my brother would feel bad about being the adopted, my dad would tell him, "We chose you." Son here. Was 18 at the time. Girlfriend's parents have weird attitudes. They kicked her out and she moved in with us. We lived in the basement and as such we had traffic from my family doing laundry. Girlfriend and I got into a little back and forth. Not really sure on the subject or the beginning. But I remember her closing comment was something like, "But you don't mind when your balls slap my PSSY." At the time of this comment I could see my dad's legs starting to come down the stairs. Stop. And go backwards. I told her what had just happened and she 100% pissed herself on the spot. Me and her still laugh about this. I was on holiday in a caravan in France. The kids, boys 6 and 4, were asleep. I had had a few glasses of wine and started fooling around with the MRS in our bedroom. She was sucking my dick and she likes me giving her some dirty talk. So I said a few things while she was down there, then we finished up and go to sleep. Next day at the swimming pool my 6-year-old gets his 4-year-old brother an ice cream. He starts saying, "Yeah. You like that? Go on, rub it all over your face. You're filthy." You love it, while my 4-year-old is just munching his ice cream. Dribbling it everywhere and saying yes. I do love ice cream. My wife found it hilarious but I found it kinda disturbing. He didn't fool around again until we went home. It felt like the walls had ears. When my son was around 18 months old, he was napping, so feeling frisky we decided perfect time to get it on. So my sir was bent over the bed and I was behind her about to finish, and my son sneaks in and starts slapping my bare ass. My sir was moaning why I had stopped and then realized why. Very funny. But would not recommend. Edit. Thanks for the gold, kind stranger. When my husband and I started dating, he was renting a room in a basement from some friends. The friends had kids around the same age, 6 at the time, as his daughter, and they played well together. It was a summer day, so the kids went outside to play and we started fooling around. I had a dress on and ended up on top of him on the couch. A few days later, he gets an angry call from baby mama. Apparently, his daughter snuck back into the basement and sat at the top of the steps where it was dark and watched us. She pinned another kid down at daycare trying to reenact what she saw. Definitely one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. My son found our handcuffs. He told him they were in case we had to catch a bad guy. He then proceeded to excitedly tell his grandmother about it at a family gathering. I keep subtly trying to tell my parents that sound travels really well in our house. And that I can hear everything that happens in my parents' room while I'm in my room. I overheard my mother tell someone my brother was my half-brother. Wife asked me if I was almost done showering. My response was, why? Are you going to suck it? I was just being funny, not knowing my son was right next to her. Daughter. My mom is pretty open about what's going on with her cycle. We all always knew when she was menstruating. We're mostly female in our house. No one really cared. So one of these times we're piled on the van returning from some trip and we're all off in our own little words when one sentence from my parents' conversation comes though. Dad. Tonight. I'll be Moses. Sister and I scream in horrors. Dad admits that we weren't supposed to hear that. Me. Mid-August M. On top of her dad when I was about 35 weeks pregnant. She started crying because she thought he was hurting me. She was 4. I'm not a parent, but my friend has 3 kids. He ate something one time and spit it right back out saying that tasted like old man ballsack. His son was right behind him and now it's his new catchphrase. My sister was snoozing on the couch when my parents walked in and started talking without realizing she was there. Apparently, Dad's birthday was coming up and Mom brought up the topic of a birthday BJ. At which point my sister was no longer asleep. She was profoundly grossed out by being privy to that conversation. My mom was talking on the phone one day and I was sitting next to her. She was talking about her sister. And she was being overly friendly. I literally had no idea who it could have been at first. My stepdad was downstairs. And it obviously wasn't my aunt on the other side. And she didn't have any friends she would talk like that to. So when she hung up I asked who it was. And she told me a friend. So I asked her boyfriend. Turns out she was cheating on my stepdad. A few days later I was getting a snack from the pantry and I heard my mom tell my aunt that she can't wait to move out and leave my stepdad. She thought I was outside. Hands down the worst way to learn that your family is splitting up. I walked in on my dad watching a woman getting FK'd by a horse. Tell him nay means nay. Not a parent but a kid. When I was around 15. My dad was deployed and it was pretty hard on my mom. Me and her didn't really get along and one night she grounded me for a month for not brushing my teeth. I told her that it was ridiculous and how pissed I was that I was going to miss a lot of social events. Then locked myself in my room and just sat there. She Skyped my dad later that night and I overheard her saying when I turned 18. She was kicking me out and never wanted to see me again. Also, that she wished I was more like my little brother. I didn't talk to her for a week and she never understood why. I ended up not moving out till I was 20 due to college. But we still don't really have a good relationship and it created this resentment of my brother for a couple of years that I never should have had. We're just now finally able to talk to each other without pissing the other one off. Edit. Yes. I meant should've. IDK where should've came from. Literally last night. My wife and I were watching The Good Place. Janet said happiness pump and I looked at my wife and said ha. Penis pump. Q 5-year-old. Boy. Penis pump. My mother once told a friend that my dad pranked her by going at it hard. Then he pulled out for a second and stuck a ice cold carrot in there. Yeah. I heard everything. TMI. My daughter hid at the foot of the bed while me and my ex-wife were discussing my recent at the time suicide attempt and my depression. We don't know how long she was there. She claimed only a second and I hope she didn't hear details. They see a counselor to deal with the divorce and it's never come up. As a kid, we had a big family meal and my mom told my brother and I to help clean up afterwards. Logical. My mom left and went to the toilet. My dad went into the kitchen. My brother started stacking up some plates and I hid under the table because I wanted to scare either my mom or dad when they came back. My mom was the first to return, and when she saw I had left she told my brother, "Did your brother really just leave instead of cleaning?" It's stuff like that why I don't like him. I was like 6 and I had no idea how to respond to that. Thanks mom. Not a parent but kid. Overheard my mom crying over the phone to aunt, her sis, about a miscarriage that occurred before I was born. Asked my brother, 12 years older, about it, and I was supposed to have an older sister. This question makes me wonder how different people might have been over 100 years ago. When you live in a one-room cabin and have 6 kids. How did they make more kids? Go play outside. Don't come back till it's dark. Or, go plow the field while I play your mom. I heard my mom joking about adopting me. I thought she was talking literally. I cried. Repainting kids' bathroom. So children had to shower in our ensuite. Didn't realize it, but the walls are quite thin. So I was talking to my wife about going down on her when I heard my teenager shout "EWWW" from the bathroom. A little mortifying, but at the same time, I kind of want my kids to know I'm still into their mom. I heard my mom talk about how they have to be quiet about having sex in my grandma's house cause the walls are thin. Not a parent but a son. Once I heard my mom telling my neighbor, F, that they were actually going to abort me. But the doctor suggested them not to, since he had lost his 2 kids during pregnancy, miscarriage. And here I am today. Alive and happy. They didn't know you then. If you're not planning to have a kid, it can be scary. Once you meet them and realize they're an actual person, it's full stop. Full stop. Well, it's actually terrifying, but in a good way. As a kid I overheard many things. My parents work in a funeral related field that involves going to the scene of sudden traumatic deaths along with volunteering with the fire department. I overheard how one of my friends splattered himself over 3 rooms with a shotgun. How one of my friends had to hold down to stop from fighting the paramedics after being in a crash. How light yet heavy children are in body bags. So much tea a teenager shouldn't have to hear. When I was a kid I heard mom crying in her bedroom. I opened the door to see what was wrong. Well, let's say mom wasn't crying. Lights were on, no covers, dad plowing the field. Bath. Hard to shake that one off, haha. Not the parent but the aunt. When I was in a car accident last year, my brother put his phone on speaker and my niece and nephew heard that I had been hurt and was taken to the hospital. He had to explain a lot to them that most children should not have to know. Bless them, they thought I got cut up and taken out the car and put back together in the hospital. Also a son. My brother and I went to a drive-in movie with my mom and one of her friends. We were pretty young. I think the first one was some kids movie and she thought we would be asleep by the third. We were awake the entire time. The third movie was Scary Movie 1. And the scene where the dude puts the penis in the guy's ear through the glory hole came on. I asked what that was and she said it was a thumb. Woman. I was testing you. I knew exactly what was going on, LMAO. Every once in a while, the wife and I will shower together. It's a good way to get a break from the kiddos and have some alone time together. 2 weeks ago, daughter, 4 years old, was napping and we snuck into the shower together. We're making some noise now and things are already set in motion that I can't take back. In the heat of the moment we hear, "Can I come in too?" Family shower. We pop our heads out of each side of the shower curtain and see our daughter just standing there naked. Totally ready to jump in. With the most innocent smile and excitement on her face. She somehow snuck in without us hearing. I hope she wasn't standing there for long. This is what locks are for. One time when I was young and got sick I slept in my parents' room. They made me a little bed right next to theirs on the floor and we slept. I woke up in the middle of the night and hear my mother and father whispering back and forth. My mom is going, "Stop. Stop. He's right there." To which my dad says, "Oh, he's fast asleep." Then I just start to hear soft moans until they finish. So yup. I had to listen to my parents have sex and pretend I wasn't awake. I found 2 dildos and a cock ring in my dad's bedroom. I've been looking for those. I witnessed one of my mom's suicide attempts. Sucked. I have a great story for this which will never see the light of day. Not a parent. But once when I was in my older brother's room looking for comics when he came home with his girlfriend and I panicked and closed the closet door. He went through the house and loudly inquired about my presence, to which I stayed mum. I wasn't trying to catch a beating. Well, through the closet door I was treated to the loudest, sloppiest blowjob I've ever heard since. I literally clasped my hands over my mouth to stifle breathing. Thank God he didn't want to change his shirt. They soon left for her house and I was left clutching a crumpled Superman comic. Shocked and intrigued by the entire experience. I later confessed to my accidental tourism later that night and he just laughed. I walked into the garage and heard my dad tell my little brother that I was worse at terrible at Little League. It crushed me as a 30-year-old man. Not coming from a parent, but I recently overheard my parents are getting a divorce. Not a parent, but I walked into my mom on top of my dad having sex. They told me that they were hugging in a special way. My mother was never shy. She'd tell me to my face what was on her mind. Always told me that my father was a piece of shit and how much he hated him. But would turn around and in the same breath tell me I look just like him. Being a young teen, it made you think that when your mom looked at your face she didn't see you but your father. Now I have a 6-year-old and he is just as big of a shitty head as me. Lol. He's my dude. I now know what kind of parent I want to be. As a kid, I never heard or walked in on my parents having sex. The walls were super thin. And I would have heard anything. So I could always blissfully imagine that they just never did it after having me. I was home from college over spring break. And it happened. My girlfriend, now wife, and I got home from a date. And I could hear my parents' TV on. So I went to just say that we were home. I even knocked. The next morning, my mom got me up for church. And just quietly said, "Please knock from now on." I was like, I did. Now, our 4-year-old hardly ever gets up in the middle of the night. So my wife and I don't think too much about locking the door at night. But it happened the other night. I thought I heard something. But then thought it was the TV. Then I look over. And see her standing in the doorway. She was rubbing her eyes. And I think we were able to get under the covers fast enough. Because she didn't even question anything. And she's the type to have said something. I came home from school when I was very little and my dad was doing things to my mom in the kitchen like all folks do. And I asked what they were doing, very awkward for them. But I was just little. Later that week we had a huge family gathering and I remember telling a bunch of people that I saw my dad putting his fingers in my mom's butthole like to my aunts and uncles and grandparents. Definitely an interesting Christmas party for sure. It's all past us now and honestly no one talks about it. So I think it's all good. Not a parent but a kid. I would normally stay up late watching YouTube on my phone and I can see the door to my parents' room from mine and I saw my mom close the door. She doesn't normally do that. Then a minute later I just start hearing squeaking from their bed and I just lay there for what felt like hours trying to go to sleep. Squeaking. This right here. Not a parent. But a kid. Who heard mom telling dad that because of my diabetes and lack of self-care will lead me to being always lonely and probably an amputee. Now this is painful. But right after she acted like nothing has been said and refused to remember this shitty. Funny enough, I had a father who didn't pay attention to his diabetes. He had a stroke when he was in his early 30s and was dead at 37. It is no f***ing joke. Take care of yourself. Man. Reading all this makes me real thankful of my relationship with my parents. When I was a kid, my mom once tried to FCK with me by telling me I was adopted. I just said something along the lines of makes sense. Like y'all two could have made someone as great as me. It's, to this day, still a running joke in our family. I'm gonna need me some of that dick later. Slaps husband's butt. OMG mom. Seriously? SX noises. Not a parent, but when I was an angsty teen trying to figure my shit out, my siblings would pull me aside and tell me about the things my dad would say about me when I wasn't in the room. He talked about how he wanted to kick me out once I turned 18, or that I'm a piece of shit for not going to church, which made no sense since he only went to look good to the community while cheating on my mom. It made me angry, but I didn't take it seriously since my dad is the kind of guy who is all talk and only picks on people smaller than him. Not my kid, but my girlfriend's kids walked in on my wife. Her and I in the middle of a three-way. Wait, what? Not a parent, but a kid. Whoa. There are a lot of people in this thread who were or are children. Crazy. Spoilers ahead for Netflix series Dirty John. In the last episode, a male character tries to kidnap a young woman at knife point. She fights back and gets a hold of the knife. She stabs him several times in the back, and then directly in the eye. It's all clearly visible and graphic. Right after the scene ended, we heard our 5-year-old son crying quietly in his room. He told me heard it and it sounded scary, but he admitted to my wife that he watched the whole thing.